Like, I really genuinely had to be delivered from these entities that were living within me. And that's crazy to think about. It's insane to think about.
Today, I'll be interviewing a young woman who have an amazing testimony. She was involved in the New Age and tarot card reading, and from that experience, led her to Jesus Christ. And I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. So I can give you just like who I am. My name is Marion. I'm a real estate agent by trade and a serial entrepreneur, and a super serious Jesus fan, if you will. And yeah, what you're saying is correct. That I was in church my whole life, and then kind of in a seeking for answers moment, started to dabble in the new age, spirituality and consulting mediums and all that crazy stuff. And that really is what kind of solidified my belief in God and started to allow me to go on this really deep, magical journey with Him in kind of learning who He is and learning how to spot Him working in my life, really see Him and listen to Him and hear Him and kind of just have complete understanding and belief that He is real and He is God and my life is in His hands. So,
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on to the channel. And I know a lot of people are going to benefit from your amazing testimony. So tell us a bit about your childhood. Were you raised in the church?
oh man, yeah. Not as bad as some people that I know now, not as bad as like a preacher's kid or something. But
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother was in the choir, she was very, very big on Bible study and being there as much as possible, basically. And she was the one, my dad kind of just let her take the reins when it came to our church experience. So she was the one always taking us to church. And I don't really remember why we were constantly with her, but maybe it was just the way the scheduling worked out. My mom, when my mom would have us, my grandmother would pick us up from school, and Wednesday night we would be in church while she's doing rehearsal and hanging out with all the other kids of the people that are in the choir. And then on Sundays we were there from Bible study in the morning to the end of the service, and then afterwards, because they used to do food after church, and in my day, let's say.
Yeah.
So we
So,
were there
so
all day, man. It was a big part of my upbringing for sure. My grandmother was a very, very devout woman of God.
sorry to interrupt, but the best way to support this channel is by subscribing so other people could see it. Back to the video. So why didn't you stay in church? So why did you, deviate from that?
That's such a good question. I think about that a lot, like because I have my daughter, right, and
Mm-hmm.
she is growing up now, definitely more involved in the church even than I was. And I just keep thinking to myself, like, how do I keep her here? Like, how do I keep her focused on God and really loving Him and thinking about Him all the time? And I think that the difference, or at least what I realized was the issue for me and what I'm trying to do better with my daughter, is that I never really developed a personal relationship with God. In
Yeah.
my household, it was almost like my grandmother was the main one thinking about God, and she was the main one kind of telling us to think about God or reminding us to pray. And we did pray. I prayed every night, always, but having like a zeal for God, having like a desire to really seek after the knowledge and understanding of Him. I guess I don't know what it is. I think it could be that my dad was not very into the church, into
Mm-hmm.
church in general. He's a believer, but he wasn't like, you know, gung ho for the entire, let's say, Christian experience. So we didn't really have a lot of time going to church with him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
in our day to day household living with him, there wasn't very much mention of God at all, you know? And then my grandmother, while she was very into God, she was a very difficult person. Like, I loved her very dearly and she loved me, and I know that, but we would have just disagreements. And I think there was like a association happening,
Mm-hmm.
like God is through Granny. And so if that relationship is difficult, then how do you kind of foster a deeper relationship with God? Because the adult that you kind of look up to for that help is difficult to deal with. So I think those are my main reasons why. I really can't say. It could also just be the realities of the pull of the world and
Yeah.
things, once you go to college, especially just being like a lot more worldly, a lot less structure over your life. So while I did still go to church while I was in college, I found one of the most, I don't want to say worldly churches, but that's the best way to put it.
Mhm.
Like I was at a church that kind of like they had the crowd that would disappear during the Super Bowl season. Like they would just all of football season, you would just not see the same people in church, and then the rest of the summer you see them. So that kind of church with a very big congregation, very big, very very good choir, but not as much direct individual work with Congress with the congregation, and like an opportunity to really become part of a church family. So I didn't really get much from it. You kind of
Right.
go, you think all I got to do is worship. You do that, and then you go about the rest of your week living your own life. So that was, yeah, I think that was just, it was a steady decline, sadly.
Right. Right. So when you left church, did you become a atheist? Were you agnostic? So when I was listening to your testimony, and I heard you said you were, questioning the existence of God. So tell us
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. This is a good interview. Like, I haven't even thought about these things. Now I'm like, I got to get real with myself and be honest, because I definitely was questioning because I just didn't understand it, right? Like, and I'm a very logical person. I say that to people all the time. I didn't come to believing in God and specifically believing in Jesus Christ without an aggressive use of logic, because I don't like to hear that's just how it is. That like, miss me with that. I no, I need answers. I need answers. I need understanding. So I kind of, yeah, I realized there was just so much in life that was inexplicable and yet seemed to be insurmountable, right? So it'd be like, well, let me think, like work, right? Like I just couldn't figure out work. I was like consistently getting fired from places. And then I came to realize, you know what, maybe my focus is wrong because I'm not meant to be an employee, right? And then
Hmm.
just having this like concept of there must be a reason I'm here, right? Like I am created by something, probably is my assumption. And the best use of my life is to align myself with the one that made it so that I can go out and be the best possible version of myself. And in having success in my career, but not really having like a full life and feeling fulfilled, just start to wonder like, what is it all about, man? What is the purpose? Like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? What is my reasoning, right? Why did I believe in God as far as Jesus, or as far as just the concept of God that my grandmother, taught me? Who's right, right? You
Hmm.
like, as a logical person, I remember when I was in I went to Catholic school, and I remember when I was in religion class, our religion teacher would say, he doesn't think that you can claim to believe in God if you haven't questioned if God exists,
Right.
right? Um, you know what I mean? And that's always stuck with me because it makes so much sense. Like we seek truth and something to prove itself for
Hmm.
most other portions of our lives, and then when it comes to God, there's so many people just kind of taking other people's word for it.
Yeah.
My pastor says this, my grandma says this, my daddy says this, so this is how I view God. And it's like, well, but who is he for real? If he exists, then maybe he can, connect with me, and maybe he
Hmm.
has a reason for me to be here in the first place. So yeah, that was kind of like the way I thought about it. I wasn't an atheist at all, but I was very much open to the idea that atheism could be correct.
Right.
Just as much as Hinduism, just as much as Judaism. Like I was super open to whatever is right just being like revealed to me.
Right. So I think the mistake that the churches make nowadays is they're not giving people the reason why they should believe in God. They just give you the Bible, read the Bible, and just believe in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I
Right.
think the churches should, give people the reason why they should believe in God outside of the Bible. For example, the order and design of the universe point to a designer. You know what I mean? So you don't just get things out
Exactly.
of nothing. It's logical. So I think, if the church go that route, they would have, many success. So how did you get
Oh,
involved in
that's
the
such
new
a good
age?
question. Yeah, man. It's funny because
Sorry to interrupt, but the best way to support this channel is by subscribing so other people could see it. Back to the video.
is the enemy had a plan and a slow plan of attack to lead me over into that side of the world, of the spirit world. And I was defenseless because I did not arm myself with the full armor of Christ, right? And I
Right.
did not have anyone else around me that was seriously protecting me. And it's so funny. So in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
my former babysitter died, right? Like a woman who babysat me and a bunch of other people that I like grew up with. And it was a big deal because for me, she was kind of my last prayer warrior, right? Like she was the last person in my life. Both of my grandmothers had passed away. This was the last person in my life that was genuinely like praying for me and always would leave me messages. I'm praying for you. And it kind of hit me like, oh my goodness, I don't really have anyone praying for me anymore. Like, interesting. And I wanted to deepen my own personal connection with the creator,
Mm-hmm.
right? At the same time, I was seeking knowledge and understanding about just what is even happening, what is all of this out here. And a woman that I knew personally, one of my daughter's friends, I have known this woman since our children were babies, right? Like babies. And this was when the little girl was around, like, I guess the kids were around 6 years old now, about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So so crazy. It's such a long story. She basically was a medium,
Mm-hmm.
and she told me about this. And for about 2 years, she was taking the time to like fast and meditate and really connect with whatever forces she connects with. And I watched her go through that whole process. Like I watched, kept up with it, asked her how's it going, got her updates kind of monthly, if you will, for a while, for like 2 straight years. So after all of that, after she had kind of, I guess, done whatever ritual she needed to do to really connect with her things, she started to offer tarot card readings to me and a bunch of other women that were, close to her. So that's how I got into it, because I was, as at the time that she's ready to, do this, be this vessel for that entity, is exactly around the time that this woman passed away. My former babysitter passed away. And I was looking for answers. I was looking for connection with God and connection with the spirit realm. And here she is, just like super conveniently, close to me already, like someone that I already trust. It was very intentional. Yeah.
So, so when you met her, was she already involved in this kind of stuff, or she was going through the process of learning all these things?
No, so she told me, this is how it's so important to know how sneaky they can be. It's so sneaky because I've known her since our children were, babies. But she didn't start talking about the dark magic stuff for years.
Mm.
Years. Just played like a regular friend, like very, very close. This is like a big deal because I had to defriend her, of course, and like I had
Mm-hmm.
to unfriend her in my regular real life. And our kids were super close, like best friends close. We did hangouts, sleepovers. Like this is someone really, really close to my life. And then as she told me this was something that she was starting to dive into, then she reveals that her grandmother was a witch back in Africa. This is an African woman. Yeah. I don't know ancestral curses and ancestral bonds. Like, you don't know, especially as someone that has African roots. You just don't know, because that is like, Africa is the motherland for voodoo and witchcraft. That's just a fact, right? So this particular woman, she told me, like, yeah, my grandmother was a witch. And she didn't say a witch. She said my grandmother was a medium. And so that's another thing that's so interesting to me, is like these different terms, and they are different terms, they do mean different things, but for some reason medium didn't really connect in the way that witch would have, you
Right.
know. Like when I heard, oh, my grandmother was a medium, I'm like, okay, cool. Now that I'm looking back at it, the stuff that she would tell me, dude, like she would tell me as she was opening herself up to all of this stuff, she would tell me how she, would just see dead people like in her house, and like she would have to, like, yeah, there was, like, it's kind of crazy, man. This interview is like bringing a lot of this to the forefront for me. So that's really aggressive stuff that I was hearing and like just dismissing it, like, oh, that's crazy. Like, what? She's seeing dead people walk through her house, and she has to like open a door, like absolve them of whatever so that they can move on to whatever next place. Like, that's
Right. Maybe you know the answer to the question I'm about to ask you, because every time I go on YouTube and I type New Age, all I see is women that have testimony just like yours, and that says that, hey, that's how they come to Christ, by having tarot card reading about them, engaging in witchcraft. Why is it a lot of women are getting involved in the New Age?
oh, that's such a great question. I mean, honestly, I don't really know, because I don't want to really give like a worldly answer to that. It's the reality of it is that the answer to that is that it's a spiritual fight, and there are demonic presence that are intentionally targeting women. Now, the reason why, I don't really know, probably because women are the nurturers of the children, right? So whatever the mom is practicing, the kids are more likely than not going to be practicing, and the women are going to be the ones that actually go out and like tell people about what they're doing. They tend to be the ones that spread messages a lot. So it doesn't surprise me that women are being targeted for all of this, and why they're interested in it. Probably seeking answers would be my thought as well. Like, I know that was what I wanted. I wanted answers. I wanted to feel a little bit more control over my life and the
Hmm.
things that were happening. And then I also wanted to just get real clarity over things that I had genuine, like, deep questions about. You know, I don't know that it was. Yeah, I think it's also just something that kind of women have been sharing a lot. Like, if you think about it realistically, witches in general, when you think of a witch, you think of a woman.
Right.
You know, it's a very, you know what I mean? Like, women get used for this type of work very often. So, oh, that's nice and loud. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's very loud outside my window.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's probably what it is. It's just, and I'd be happy to actually hear some statistics about this. Maybe like see some other women's videos about what brought them to it. But I would say just probably looking for answers and feeling helpless in a lot of portions of your life, and seeking something that will help with those things.
Right. Right. When you start having tarot card reading with her, what did she tell you that convinces you that convinced you that there's a dark side, witchcraft is
Yeah.
real, there's a spiritual world? What did she tell you exactly?
Oh my gosh. It's too much to even list in one podcast, let's say. But the every reading was either spot on or like had even more than what I was asking. I remember there was an instance where questions about my dating life would come up, and she flipped over a card that literally looked like the man in the card looked like a guy that I was dating. Like
Mhm.
literally, physically, the card looked like him, and he was carrying flowers. And that guy had given me flowers like 3 days before, like a huge bunch of flowers, right? And that's like a tiny instance. Another instance, she told me um, she could perfectly describe two, if not three of my dead relatives perfectly. People that she had never met.
Mhm.
She was describing not only what they look like, but their mannerisms. She was describing how my grandmother would act. She was like, "Oh, she's bouncing up and down and waving, so like she's super happy to see you." And that's like it was to a T. She said, "Jesus, I'm getting so crept out right now because it's so real." She said, she said that my grandmother wanted to make sure that she told her that her hair is silver and not gray. And that was such a big thing that my grandmother would say. I can't even explain. Like, that was huge. My grandmother would get special shampoo to make sure that when she washed her hair, it was like shimmering. And she was huge on saying my silver hair, my silver hair. It was huge. My grandmother died well before she would have had a chance to meet this woman. So my mom, she told me about my mom and described my mother's attitude, the way that my mom would have stood while saying certain things. My mother died in like 2001. So it was way too on point, dude. It was way too on point. I can't even, like, it really tripped me out at first. It crept me out. And then it got me very excited because I just felt like, oh man, like I figured it out. I've got it. I know what to do. I just have to connect with whatever this thing is, and like it'll help me lead my life because it has the answers. And
Mm.
yeah, everything she said was correct. Everything.
So, a lot of people gonna watch this. Some people might be watching this interview, and they might say, "Hey, this woman was your friend. She know about your life. Did you tell
Mm-hmm.
her anything about your life?" Some people might say that this is fake. So, what convinces you
Right.
that this was real?
Yeah, no, it couldn't be fake. I'm a huge skeptic, like like I said, I'm a logical person. Like, you really have to convince me of something for me to believe. And I've been to other mediums prior to this woman. I went to like a voodoo guy in New Orleans. Like, I did all types of, opening up, if you will. And this particular woman, even though, yes, she did know me, so she might have known that these people existed, but there's no way. There's just no way because there's, like I said, there's nothing that I would have told her about my grandmother calling her hair silver, or the way that my mother spoke about my dad and about my grandmother. Like, she wouldn't know that. My mother died decades before me and this woman became friends or even knew
Right.
of each other, right? So there's just no way. And then it was also things that she would predict would happen later on. You see what I'm saying? But they were never like really huge, but it was definitely on point. So yeah, there was like I questioned it. I said meh at first. Like, when she would read about my past, I'd be like, well, you were there for that, so maybe she is just kind of weaving in stuff that she already knows. But then she would start to talk about stuff way in the past, or something that would have been on my mind that I might have like said a couple days ago, and was not around her, did not speak to her at all. Like, it was just, yeah. I know that there's going to be skeptics. Perfect example. I was so convinced about this woman that I would suggest her to people who didn't believe in God at all.
Oh.
Because I would tell them, like, listen, you need a spiritual experience. Yeah. Like, I was like, you need a spiritual, otherworldly, inexplicable experience to make you open your eyes and accept that this is not just it. We're not just here by ourselves. And I want you to go to this woman because she is amazing. I don't even know. Like, I had like 6 or 7 different people go to her, which
Hmm.
is terrible. Yeah, it really hurts my heart to think about that now, but it just was what it was.
Wow.
Because I really,
So,
yeah, but she was that connected. I wouldn't have suggested her to people if I didn't believe it. So
Right. So how many reading that you had with this woman?
No, dude, you don't understand. Like,
Mhm.
like this was a common occurrence. Pretty much every time we would hang out, she would bring her, cards. She did tarot cards, and then we would do like a pendulum thing. Oh my gosh, so crazy to think about that. We would do this pendulum that would like spin around and say, rock this way for yes, rock that way for no, whatever. And she would do like aura readings where she would read your aura. Craziness. But I would see her every like month, if not every 2 months. It was a lot.
Right. So so after you are convinced that the spiritual world exists, and were you starting to get involved back in the church? How did you get to that point when you find Christ?
That is such a great question. Man, that's such a interesting, kind of long-winded testimony, but basically the way to answer that is that God surrounded me with Jesus. Like everywhere I went, someone was talking about Jesus. And I know that that's common in New York, but it would be like I would hang out with a friend and that friend is talking about Jesus. I was online on like chat, you know, um, this chat platform called Bigo, and I would do live like videos just talking to people, and often the Bible would get brought up for whatever reason, like just
Hmm.
boom, 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 the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. I always had been in church. I don't know why it really like it, ebbed and flowed my membership or my consistency ebbed and flowed, but I was never out of church. And then I started to hear direct messages in church, right? Like that was a big one for me where I was, just kind of hearing answers to what I had prayed for privately, right?
Yeah.
So talking to God and just having conversations and telling God like, "Hey, I told him, I said, "Okay, I believe that there's more. This entire practice has kind of confirmed that to me. So please just show me who you are." Right? Like just show me who are you. I'm open to whatever. Buddha, the Hindu gods, whatever, Muhammad, like whoever you are, show me who you are. The consistent message over and over and over kept leading back to Jesus Christ. And then when I would read, because I finally got into like reading the Bible, which is such an interesting thing too, because as much as this woman was trying to pull me right into the darkness,
Yeah.
the the pulling only really opened my eyes up and brought me to Jesus. And it's really such a testimony of, God using the enemy's plans for his glory, right? Because I was not seeking. I was comfortable just saying like I believe in God and just living my life however I wanted to live it and just saying a, grace and a good night prayer. I was completely fine with that.
Hmm.
But in seeking these answers because I had been opened up to this dark magic, I started to realize that a relationship with God is possible and that that's what he wants, and that it requires giving up a lot of these things that I was super comfortable with. Um, and all of that wouldn't have happened. I mean, it probably would have happened a different way. God is God. He'll do whatever he needs to do. But the way that it happened for me was in having so many experiences that couldn't be of this world that I finally said, you know what, something is real, and
Hmm.
let me go see what that thing is.
So since you open yourself to the demonic world, were you ever oppressed by demonic spirit?
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy that you say that. So I used to get night terrors, like really bad night terrors. This is so interesting. I haven't really explored all of this. So I'm actually glad we're
Mhm.
having this conversation because you're making me think think really deeply about like the realities of how much my life was affected by, these forces that were just leading me away from God. But I was consistently plagued with these night terrors, and this is from when I was like younger too. And even up until my daughter was a couple ages, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old, I would get these bad night terrors. The other thing that would happen, well, the night terrors are pretty much the worst, but I would like, if, I don't know if you've ever had a night terror or heard of them, but you're basically asleep. You're not really dreaming, but in an instance, you just are convinced that something's trying to kill you, and you wake up and you can't move or you can't speak. And then some people have them differently. They'll see something, like I would often see something in the corner. This is so crazy. I would see something in the corner, like near my closet or whatever. And then like in an instance it would be gone. And I would just be panicking, you're like terrified, like you're just still, or you're so convinced that this thing or someone is trying to kill you that you try to leave. So I've had times where I've, just screamed and started running out the door, like not out of the apartment, but like out of my bedroom door. Another instance where I was like fighting my, my daughter's dad at a time. Like, so yeah, I didn't really even think about that, but that probably was directly connected with this, because it is, yeah, I haven't had one in a very long time. And they are so negative when you have them that it really doesn't feel like it could come from any other source, like it's just a terrifying instance. That, and then also, I guess, I don't know if I can say it's like a demonic presence that I feel on a regular basis, but there is now so much more demonic interference in my life
Mm-hmm.
than there was that I noticed prior,
Mm-hmm.
like, so I'm thinking about it now. I think what it is that I just notice it more because I'm more spiritually, in tune now and more discerning. So I notice when Satan is messing with me. But
Right.
prior, I would not realize it. But now I realize, there's so many instances where people just have a problem with me. I haven't done anything wrong, or they're really angry at me, right? Or like I'm the one that receives their outlash. And I didn't really do anything to deserve it. Not saying that I'm perfect, far from perfect. I definitely, am not that. But there are so many instances where I'm just like, man, like how did this go so left so quickly? And I've realized now that it's often like, oh yeah, that's just Satan trying to ruin your day, trying to make you frustrated so that you don't want to go pray, or you don't want to go read your Bible, or you don't go to Bible study tonight because you just aren't in the mood. Like that's what that is. So now that I'm closer to God, I realize how much of that was happening, prior to me being near God. But now that I'm closer, I realize, oh yeah, that wasn't like, this person wasn't randomly angry at me. They
Mm-hmm.
were, sent on assignment to ruin my day.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a ton of that, so much of it. And now that I see how much just me casually talking about God on the internet, I've seen how much that is affecting others. There's been people, that have been, I've been personally, like God sends me to give someone a message directly. People I've personally helped that God has asked me to help, and people that have come and told me how speaking with me or hearing my story has like brought them a little closer to God. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why Satan has been attacking me so much my whole life. Like
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't want me to be useful, He's trying
Right.
to like clip my legs out so that I can't go run the race. But little does he know, like it's not gonna work over here.
That's good. Mhm. So when you were having all these, demonic attack, did you have any crystal at your house, any tarot card, any demonic object at your house?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. I had all of that. I had crystals, I had like I would drink moon water, which is when you put some water out and like on a full moon, it's supposed to absorb the moon's energy and give you energy. It's so ridiculous. But I did all of that. I had dream catchers. I had a ton of books about witchcraft that I didn't even realize I really had, but I just had anything about spooky stuff. I did a full purge one day because God sent a prophet to speak to me and to kind of like help me along the way for a while. And she told me like, just go clear out your house, like you really
Mm-hmm.
should look around your home. And once I did that, the mountain of stuff, like the just, and it, the worst part about it is that it's always a gift from someone who pretends to be so loving and healing and caring, you know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
here's your necklace. You know what's funny? I'll give you a quick little testimony because I want people to really, if you're watching the video or this interview, I want you to understand how serious it is and how real it is to God. So my friend, in pure intentions, she brought my daughter a beaded necklace, right? And it was all, beads, like just random beads, how kids would just
Right,
stack
right.
whatever bead says your name, whatever. But she brought one from a store. And on this necklace, of all the beads, maybe 200 little beads, one of them was those like evil eye, that evil eye like bead, right? So I told her, I said, oh my gosh, Lisa's my daughter's name. I said, Lisa, I'm sorry, I don't think we can keep this necklace because it's got this evil eye and it's demonic. And she was like, oh no, like what should we do? And I was like, well, why don't we smash it? Let's just try to smash the necklace. And she was like, okay. I don't know if she threw it down or I threw it down. One of us throws it down. And I'm not joking, not making this up. The only bead that broke was that one evil eye bead of the whole entire necklace. One broke. I was so upset that I couldn't find the broken bead to take a picture of it for like, proof of that testimony. But yeah, that one bead, God like snapped it off. And then we were able to like, just keep the necklace. So I say all that to say these idols, if you will, these kind of, I don't know what to really call them, just artifacts. They are so sneaky, in the way
Right.
that they have, like, society has kind of just woven them into regular society. I was at the dog park and I saw a dog with a collar with the evil eye on it. I was like, really? Like, your dog, really? So yeah, I had all of that stuff all over my house, everywhere. I had tarot card decks. I never did the tarot card readings myself,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't, and I'm thankful for that because Lord only knows how much more you'd have to open yourself up to really be able to do all of that. But yeah, it was everywhere.
So when did you, find out that you have to get rid of your friend, the one that was involved in those, magic and tarot card reading? How did you get rid of her?
Oh, that's so interesting. So the same prophet that spoke to me about all of those other things, she also mentioned, like, listen, you're gonna have to let go of this person because she's monitoring your life. Like, she is aware of what's going on with you. She watches your social media. Like, you have to block her. You have to get rid of her. So I prayed on it heavily because I don't really take anyone's, suggestions as law. Like, I need to pray and make sure that I hear what the Lord is telling me to do. So I prayed on it, and lo and behold, I just kept getting the message like, this is how witches work and why you need to shut down portals. So yeah, I had to let her go, and it was really tough. I have a whole video on my page talking about, just explaining to everyone why I had to block them, because I just went through my whole Instagram and just got rid of all the people that are dabbling in any of that stuff. And it was a like 20 or 30 people that I had to get rid of in one fell swoop. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It's crazy how much people are just doing this stuff without really thinking about what am I doing, What am I actually committing myself to and opening myself up to? So many people that are just attracted to the results, and they don't really ask, how are we getting there? How does this person have this power? How is this person receiving these messages? Who's actually speaking? They just kind of like the idea, oh, I was told that I was going to have a tuna sandwich yesterday, and I did have a tuna sandwich, so
Mhm.
it must be correct. It's like, yeah, it's correct, because there's demons following you throughout your day and then coming and sitting down next to you and whispering to the medium. Like, that's what's happening.
Right. So why is this stuff so addictive? I see so many young people are addicted to it. Is it because, they could tell you about your future or they could tell you about your past? What is it about tarot card reading that is so addicted?
That is such a good question. Like, because it's really addicting. It really is. As someone that was not completely addicted to it, but I probably would have gotten there. It really does give you this rush, right? But I guess it's almost like gambling. You want to know the unknown. So you pull that slot and you're like, "Oh, maybe this time it'll give me the answer I want." It's the same thing with tarot cards, I think. Like a lot of people are reading or reading their horoscope every day. They're doing all of that because they want to see certain answers, you know?
Mm.
And they hope, like I know for myself, I was hoping to get certain answers on things that like just kept not coming. And that was another reason I kind of, for me, ended up easing away from it too, because I was like, well, this thing seems to only really be able to tell me like a small snippet of the truth, you know?
Mhm.
It's not really giving me the full story. And it's often leaving a lot of things out of the story that I have to come find out later. So, like, why should I trust this? This doesn't really seem as effective as I need it to be. But when I was into it, I was definitely addicted for sure. I would check my horoscope. I checked my horoscope so intensely. I had this app called the CoStar app, which literally gives you like piece by piece answers about things. I don't know how to explain that, but it would say your love life. Here's a specific horoscope answer for that, and it would give you like 3 days in advance. And here's a good time to to do a financial deal, and here's a good time to reorganize your home. It was just trying to map out your whole life for you, basically. And I would check that thing like every single day. It's so ridiculous. Not that I
Yes.
lived by it, but I would check it. And I did somewhat live by it. I would be like nervous to talk to people about certain things on certain days because the moon is in this stupid alignment. It
Mhm.
was so ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
But I was really into it. I was like convinced.
Yeah. Yeah, we know the demonic, the demons are very limited. Yes, they could tell you about, what you did in the past. Yes, they could tell you what you did, what you go about to do in the future. But, they cannot, really, do anything. We know God have all the power. So
Actions
I'm glad.
power, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yep.
So if you had to
But they
give
like to pretend.
definitely, if you had to give any advice to young people that are going to watch this video, what would you tell them about, the spirit world?
Oh man. I mean, I would just tell them like, don't take it lightly, you know? I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we're making as a society, especially. Well, I mean, it's not a mistake, it's an intentional plan of the enemy. But one huge mistake that people are making on a personal level is really dismissing the severity of things like ghosts and demons and all of that. Like, it's real, right? Like the other realm is real. Now, whether or not you believe in it, okay. If you don't believe in it, if you're still an atheist, I know a very good medium, and I will send her your way, and you can get her info because
Mm.
all I need is for you to sit with her one time and get converted to realize that this stuff is real, and then your heart will start to seek. Like your head will just open up. Like, man, if that's real, then what is the rest of this all about? For me, once I realized that all of that is real, then the instant connection of, well, then heaven and hell must be real. And once you realize that, and you realize that Satan is like the biggest hater of them all, like he's a number one hater in history of haters, and he wants you to suffer like he has suffered. He wants as many people with him as possible. Misery really does love company. You start to realize that all of this, everything that you're dealing with, is in the spirit. As the Bible tells us, we fight not against, flesh and blood, but against spirits and principalities. And the reality of it is, if you dabble in that stuff, even if it's just a teeny little bit, you are making agreements, covenants, bonds. You are literally confirming to these entities. They want to call themselves your spirit guides, but actually they're familiar spirits, right?
Yeah.
There's someone that's been with you since before you were born, potentially. You have no idea how much we are fighting off, right? Especially African Americans, like a lot of us, or Haitian Americans, like Caribbean Americans in general, even Latino Americans, everywhere, right? Like, let's be honest about it. Actually, in fact, forget that. Everybody has relatives that have been part of the occult in most societies, right?
Yeah.
Most nationalities, most ethnicities, we practice some type of witchcraft, some type of voodoo in our lineage. So if you open up these doors, a lot of the time it's because someone way back made a covenant with your great great grandma and promised her entire lineage to this demon or to, whatever. And you have been told, they've been told that they get access to at least try you, at least attempt, right? Oh, I want to get that one. I got to at least give, here's a droplet of temptation and let me ease you in. But the reality of it is it's not nearly as simple as just, oh, I'm going to talk to someone on a voodoo, or what is that thing called? Voodoo board? A Ouija board.
Ouija board, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I used to get into all that. They've so normalized the spirit realm here, but they've normalized the negative as being fine. So I grew up watching like Ghostbusters or Goosebumps, right? And there's like the X-Files. There's all of those shows that would open you up to being comfortable with the concept of these otherworldly things interacting in your life. So
Right.
when Ouija boards came out, we're all like, yeah, I want to do it. Let's, whatever. And who knows how many agreements that we form just by hitting yes on that little thing over and over, right?
Right.
We want to be in a place where we are comfortable with this other realm, but we don't understand it nearly enough to just be opening the door to it over and over and over. And that's my biggest concern with younger people, especially, is that the sooner you can get someone with a developing brain to be committed to or open to something, the harder it is to pull them away from it later on. So the more they keep telling younger people like, hey, just, it's fine, just go get that love potion. We're in New Orleans. Like, get that. Go ahead. Take a little bit of that woman's hair and put an egg around it. Like, all of that stuff is witchcraft. All of it,
Yep.
And we've become so desensitized to it. My number one suggestion to younger people would be to like learn who Jesus Christ is as quickly as you can because he's the one that has like a flashlight through all of the demonic darkness. Like he
Mm-hmm.
really has understanding and truth that can help you navigate and stay away from the occult, stay away from the witchcraft, because if you're not aware of what you should even be looking for, all of this stuff now looks like regular society.
Right.
It looks
Right.
like everyday life.
Right. So what you said is true. It has become so normalized. Everywhere I go in New York City, I see a tarot card reading store. So the devil and his demon
Yes.
has made it so easy for people to get access to the demonic world.
Yep, that's a fact.
Yeah.
It's everywhere, everywhere. And they don't. The interesting thing to me is just that I just feel like if you're reading palms and you've got all this like ability, why are you broke? Why are
Right.
you reading someone's hand for $5? Like there should be some logic in all of that. Like but people trust them every day. It's so interesting to me. I'm like, what makes you
Yeah.
think that is like the truth? But
Yeah.
they have enough answers, just enough answers to make it seem legitimate, and they don't mess with your life enough or in a obvious enough way for you to stop dealing with them. So they're very crafty.
Right. So when you were, involved in the demonic stuff and you got out of it and you accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior, did you feel the presence of the demonic fleeing from you?
Oh man, yeah. I had to get deliverance like on multiple occasions because there's so much to it. I had to anoint my home. I had a friend pray over me to help me, you know, break bonds that I had formed with the occult. I had an instance where I just prayed and like laid on my floor and cried and like released all of this heaving and all this craziness. And like I swear, man, it's so funny that we're talking about this because I really don't think about it very much. But it is wild how much this is all real. Like I really genuinely had to be delivered from these entities that were living within me. And that's crazy to think about. It's insane to think about. But they really are. Like they're within you. They're not just the same way the Holy Spirit lives within us. These demonic
Right.
spirits will live within us. And it's terrifying to think about that because you don't even realize you're letting them in. So much of it can even happen from before you're even able to fight for yourself. Like childhood trauma causes so many of these
Yes.
long lasting, demonic presence in our lives because it opens you up to the negative feelings that attach or kind of draw in these, demonic forces and allow them to speak to your mind and be received when they wouldn't have if you were in a better spirit, right? Or if you were in a better place emotionally. So there was so much that had to be released. I'm still working on it, to be honest. There's still, daily, like there has to be a dying of the flesh, and there also has to be a reminding of oneself, like I have to stay close to God, close to God. If I don't stay close to God, that's when the enemy has space to wiggle in and now draw me away, right? Like, because as much as we remove those things, we are still in this world full of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So walking around day to day, you know what I mean? Like you got rid of your anger, but there's still someone out there trying to make you angry because they want to reintroduce that negative spirit into your life so that it can continue to have a hold on you. So yeah, I had to and have to this day continuously pray over myself, like stay rooted in the word, stay rooted with God, give myself grace because it doesn't happen overnight, and like believe that there is salvation in Christ, because otherwise you can feel really alone.
Right. And one thing I noticed from people that get involved in tarot card reading, the new age, is that they always depressed. They suffer from anxiety. And the devil
Hmm.
will never fulfill you. It will never fulfill
Yep.
you, because because the Bible says the devil come to destroy. So if he come to destroy, why would the devil help you in any way? And if he does help
Right.
you in any way, he'll get it back. They always suffer
Right.
from anxiety, depression. The devil only come to destroy. This is one thing that young people do not understand.
Yeah, that's a fact. They don't, because they're not being taught that anymore. You
Right.
know, I just feel like it's not really, we don't have enough discussion about it in regular households. You hear it at church, but the rest of the world is demonic. Like that's just the reality of it. The rest of the world paints Satan as like a cartoon. As you know what I mean? Like this fictional character, basically. That's what it is. It's like there's a lot of painting the devil as a fictional character, as if he doesn't exist.
Nah, he
And
does exist. Trust me.
he
And
really does,
and this
man.
woman that was your friend, did she ever try to come back into your life?
She did. She tried to reach out on different platforms, and I just kept her blocked. I haven't spoken to her since. And it's funny too because the woman that told me to release that woman, she told me, she was like, "Yeah, this girl already knows that you've like cut ties with her. She already knows. She's already been informed by her spirit, partners, right? So you don't have to worry about it." And because I felt crippling guilt. I'm like, man, this is someone that I've been friends with for years, like, and I'm just, moving on without her. And then I feel the Christian guilt of like, well, maybe I should try to save her soul. Maybe I should try to introduce her to Jesus. But then, thankfully the Lord sent that woman to help me on that journey. And she just reminded me, like, listen, this girl already knows those demons that have been telling her all about you. They're already telling her that you're, blocking her, and you just need to walk away and leave it. So she has not been back in my life. There's been others that have tried, to just reach out and like entice me into some reading or something, and I just keep
Hmm.
them squashed. But instead of those people, I deal with like actual demons now, which is interesting. So that part, there's like, as you get closer to God and he decides to use you, you start to really like realize, oh yeah, okay, like there's this person that I'm talking to, and then there's this like demon literally like sitting within them that you end up having to break down instead of the person, because the person is just a person.
Right.
So as they say, new levels, new devils, if you will.
Is there any last thing you want people to know from your amazing testimony?
Oh man, I would just say it's okay to explore, right? Because I don't believe that you should believe in anything that you can't prove, that you don't feel firm in, that you don't know for sure. Go ahead and seek the truth about God. I say that with so much confidence because there are other faiths that will tell you not to do research, right? Mormons, they tell them, oh, don't do your research. Oh, there's all these people out there trying to seed lies. And in reality, if you can't research something and have the truth be found at the bottom of that research and match the truth that's at the top, then you should be questioning that faith. Like for me, and I think for everyone out there, you should really demand that God prove himself to you, and not in a boastful way, but in a I want to submit to the right person. I want to go down the right path. I am desperately lost without you. Please come and save my life. Please come and show me that you're real. And let him do that and be open to the realities of what that looks like. It's in the coincidences. God, I always say there's no such thing as coincidence. So if something happens that you just prayed about 2 days ago, that's God. That's not a coincidence. Someone that you were thinking of, calls you and has a testimony for you, or a word directed at you that might be changing your life. That's not a coincidence, right? So just be open to accepting God for who he is, but ask him, because the worst thing that you can do is say, oh, it's not that important, and then leave your afterlife to chance, all because you just didn't seek knowledge and seek his face when you had the chance.
Marion, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me. That was awesome. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye bye.